Hey everybody, welcome to season 2 of the Building Jam podcast. Now, in season 1, it was all about building in public. But in season 2, we're trying something new, learning in public. So for the next 12 weeks, we're going to be asking experts for their advice for how to build Jam, and we're recording the raw conversations to bring you in unfiltered. So you can learn with us too. Now, this is not a normal podcast. This is real behind the scenes conversations as we try to learn how to build a startup. Okay, so today we have with us Lizzie Siegle from Cloudflare. So we brought Lizzie here today to learn from her because she's a prolific developer relations person. She was first at Twilio, then at Cloudflare. And if you have been to a hackathon, a demo night, or Tech Talk in San Francisco, you have seen Lizzie. Her superpower is community. Her team describe it as everybody knows Lizzie. She's just so good at connecting. And she reads an insane amount of books, and she's an avid marathon runner. So really excited to have her here with us today.
Can I bring the first challenge? So, Lizzie, we talked to your teammates, and and what they say you are the best at is they say Lizzie knows everyone. So you walk into any dev event in San Francisco with Lizzie, and people are shouting her name. And one of the challenges that we've had recently is there used to be a time where we knew everyone who used Jam, and then we knew sort of we knew a lot of people who use Jam, and now we're sort of the user base is growing, and we feel less in touch with individuals. Like there's still some people we know, but there's just we feel a lot less personal. And we wanted your advice, when you're doing dev community for Cloudflare or Twilio, there are literally millions of developers. How are you? Yeah, how are you building these relationships, and what advice do you have?
Danny, first thing, I'm lolling that you're people are shouting, yelling their name. That's very flattering, and I wish that was true. But I think the key is just to show up, to be in these communities, to meet developers where they are. And when I was an intern at Twilio in New York or at PubNub in San Francisco, I went to so many meetups. I went to meetups almost every night. And I would go with my manager at the time, Tomomi, or from PubNub, or my teammate Sam. So it's always nice to have a buddy, because when I would get there alone, I'm always like, what do I do? Where do I go? Who do I see? Who do I talk to? Where's it going with this? I think just go. Just go and learn and network. And you never know who you're going to meet. And then I've made friends from meetups, like Adam Chan from Weaviate, and going to hackathons in college, totally shaped my developer community. It introduced me to women who I would go on to organize a women's hackathon with. And I met people who would go on to hire me at Twilio because I went to college hackathons. So I think just building that network by going, showing up, that builds your own developer community. And then you're introduced to other developer communities, because there are so many. And it's really hard to define or talk about developer communities, I think, because they mean so many different things to so many different people. And, well, it's kind of exciting. It's fun because of that.
Lizzie, what's the playbook? If we're that's great, we need to be showing up more. How do we find what events to go to? When we show up, who do we talk to? How do we do what you just described?
I think you have to fail sometimes. I've been to some not good meetups, and I've also been to some good ones. And it's really difficult for me to describe what makes one good, because they can have the same name, they can have some of the same people attending, but I think the venue helps sometimes, the organizers help sometimes, the speakers help sometimes. And when I talk to my teammate Craig, I'm just vibes. Vibes were good. Vibes were not good. And even if there's not much diversity in attendees, I'm vibes can still be good. I need to if you know of a better word for vibes, let me know. I've been trying for a while to think of one.
No, I always say that our event strategy is very vibes based, and it's hard to measure. But I wanted to ask you, Lizzie, because so you're talking about how you go to all of these hackathons, and that's sort of how you've been building your dev community. But I had never met you in person before, And like and then when we finally met in person, I was like, Lizzie, like I did see you. Lizzie. I did have that reaction. I felt like I was so excited to see you. And I think it's you, I don't know if you do this on purpose or if it's just like natural, but you are very active online. And like I see you like besides being, DevRel at Cloudflare or DevRel at Twilio, I see you as Lizzie on Twitter, like really connecting with people. And I was wondering like if you have any tips around that because I'm trying to do that more. I think it's really important for DevRel to be a person and not a company. And I think
Yeah. My first manager at PubNub, Tomomi, really taught me about Twitter, and I would love to quit that app, but alas, I cannot because I've met so many good people on there. And I think my Twitter presence and social media in general has changed over time. I used to be like, I can't tweet about personal interests. I can't tweet about tennis or running or San Francisco or biking, but it's humanizing. And then like when I learned other people play tennis, I'm like, why didn't you tell me? We could play. And I think like it's humanizing and it shows. Where's my ear and dust fell out? I got so excited. It's nice to see that people have other interests besides work. And it's also authentic. Sometimes when people only tweet about work, I'm like, well, that's not you. Or I mean, that is you, but like there's other parts that you're not showing. And like I love work things. And I think some DevRel teams, some community people, I think, say what they're supposed to say, or they're given like a script, but that's not real. So it's nice when people come across as real, and I hope that I do that. And sometimes I tweet things I'm like, I should probably not have said that. Or I've been on some Twitch streams or like live streams where I say things and I'm like, well, but I think it's authentic, it's real, and we're all human. So that's really bold to developers and people in general.
do you have to sort of manage, like, do you deal with, I don't know, like higher ups or executives at your company being like, you can't say this or that, or like, that's not been a problem. Like, how do you handle that?
No one has told me that yet. And the Twilio former CEO, Jeff Lawson, he followed me on Twitter. He followed me back a few years ago, and I was like, oh no, I have to tone it down. And I used to see him in the office. I saw him in the office, I think 2 years ago. And he was getting into local San Francisco politics for a while. And once he was like, I like your local politics tweets. And I was like, oh, Jeff. I think it worked because we ran in some of the same local politics circles. And I volunteer with SFEMB, Yes in My Backyard, not to be like a pro-housing plug. But I've met some VCs and tech people there. And that's expanded my network in San Francisco, which is kind of cool to like overlap with work and also not side hustles, side interests, volunteering.
Do you think so? I think that the thing that you do in DevRel that's so darn good is you befriend the internet and you befriend the people in person. You're like, you show up to all the meetups and all the hackathons and you build real friendships and you're on the internet and you're building real friendships. And I'm wondering, do you think that this is something that could be taught? So if we had someone joining who's never done DevRel before and we're like, this is the Lizzie playbook for how to do your job, are there things on there, or is this just it's your personality and it's a vibe, it's not a playbook?
I love that, Danny. It's a vibe, not a playbook. Because I think like developers, like regular people, there's so many different ways to make friends, and there's so many ways to educate people and to market to people. And one size doesn't fit all.
How do you suss out the vibes? Like, if it doesn't fit all right and you're sort of in different communities, sometimes bringing them together, different companies, like you've had all this experience, how do you determine like what the vibe is? Like, how do you read the room? Like, what's that skill?
I think it takes practice because sometimes I've introduced different groups and they have not gelled, but I thought they would. And I think it depends on location and timing as well. And like a big dinner table can be hard because you're kind of stuck with like people that you're next to. But like a smaller table, I think is good to start with. It's easier to like speak across the table and starting with like something that people have in common. I like the dinner that you hosted for DevRel people, because it was like, DevRel is kind of like uniting. It's a unique role where you code, you talk, you like write, you teach. And a lot of people, my family, some of my non-tech friends, like don't get it. And I'm like, yeah, I make memes for work, but like they're like educational memes or like about Cloudflare developer tools, and they're like, what? But like DevRel people get it. So that's like uniting. And with developers, I think some people, this is something that a lot of people get wrong, I think, is like developers are not a monolith. Like there are so many different developer sub communities. At Twilio, we really focused on like language communities. PHP developers were not marketed to or talked to in the same manner as iOS developers. And different countries were approached differently because of
What do you mean by that? I'm curious. Like when you say, like I understand, like as a former engineer and who still likes to code sometimes but doesn't want to share the code with other people, uh, I understand the distinction between, uh, like the cultural differences there. But when you're approaching them as a company, like how do you talk to them like differently? What does that mean? What's a good example?
not to go back to vibes, but different language specific conferences I felt had different talks, different attendees of different backgrounds. And like, I thought JavaScript conferences tended to be more lighthearted, more fun than certain other language conferences that I attended. So if I made content for a language, JavaScript tends to be more fun than that other language, which I don't even write that language anymore. I'm debating about mentioning it. It's Swift. I haven't written Swift in like years.
Yeah, memes, like, the way when you were talking to me, I was thinking that, like, if it's a JavaScript conference and if you're giving a talk, it's okay to share a lot of memes, and your entire slide deck could be just a bunch of memes, but that wouldn't float well in probably like a Swift conference. Like it's
Yes.
a little bit more serious. You have to talk about LLVM architecture a little bit, uh, you know. Um, but yeah, I think I get that.
My old manager, Devin, used to say that C# conferences, .NET, those conference talks would be like over an hour long for each talk. And I was all, I cannot talk for an hour. Like, I don't want to talk or listen for an hour. My mind cannot sit for that long. But that language community, they will do that. And I've seen some of the talks online, not all of them, because I can't sit through them, but they go like more into detail or just like different vibe.
Can you talk more about what the like kind of can you map out for us what these like sub developer communities are? Like give us the map.
Oh, wow. Okay. Different language communities. It's like Python, Swift, JavaScript, C#, PHP, iOS, and then there's like Objective-C versus Swift.
Okay, so one like sub developer community that I'm curious to get your advice on. Well, our developer strategy is basically like bring devs together, so like showcase builders, sponsor people who are also bringing devs together. So it's like uniting devs around the world. But we've been thinking about like how do we sort of like give back? Because I think developer community is a lot about like karma. And we've been thinking a lot about the contributors of open source and how much they give to startups like us. And we've been trying to think about like, we don't have unlimited budget, so we can't be like Facebook and just sponsor everything. But like, what's a great way to give back? And curious if you have thoughts on like open source and how to get involved, and yeah, things you've done in that community and all of the above. Any advice?
Sponsoring certain GitHub contributors is always good, I think. Different projects. If you had the budget to fly people to speak at conferences or like support them, I think that'd be good. Because a lot of conferences, it's like DevRel people whose work pays for them to travel because it's our job. And then certain engineers also try to speak, but their companies may not pay for it, or people are job hunting. That's kind of difficult for them to speak at events because travel. I've seen some companies sponsor that.
That's such a good idea. It doesn't even have to be like our event or our conference or anything. It's more like if you're interested in speaking at a conference and the only thing stopping you is the budget, let us help you kind of thing.
Yes, or like buying tickets. and be like, if you're in this city, we have tickets. I've seen some people do that, giving them to different influencers to give away in their communities, sponsoring YouTube channels. I'm a big fan of Jason Leansdorf, Learn with Jason. I'm trying to think of other dev YouTubers. I've been enjoying, I think his name is Ben Holmes Dev. He has some cool content. Cloudflare sponsored a video with him. I liked it. It looked like authentic. I was like, we paid him for that? Or it was good quality. It was like, I was like, it didn't look like a sponsored video.
Hey, what if we launched Jam Airlines, and basically we help open source devs go to conferences to speak.
Ooh.
And oh my god, we can do like one of those videos like United where they do all the things and then like
I love that.
This would be so fun, like such a fun campaign to work on. Jen, you are on fire today with the idea.
Yeah, this is such a great idea. Jam Airlines. Oh my god.
Wait, that's so good. Oh my god.
If you have like if your budget is not big enough for that, Twilio used to want to do, or I think they did before I joined, like buses to conferences from different cities. So it's like get developers together to go together. And I wanted to do an Amtrak from San Francisco up to Seattle for, I think it was Cascadia.js, but alas, could not get the budget. Even I tried to find friends at other companies in DevRel, like my friend Daniel at New Relic, Adam at Weaviate, and then I'm like, I need our combined budgets for this, and they're like, we can combine. And that's one way to make your dollar go further and also make friends and amplify your reach, because then you get not just Jam or Cloudflare or whatever, but you also get those other communities as well.
Yeah.
Is anyone gonna say it? If no, I have to say it. Jam track. No.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry, continue.
I am so ashamed I did not think of that, or that did not come to me.
One thing we've been thinking about, we don't have a playbook yet for developer conferences. We see like all the pictures that you post and like all the DevRel people post at conferences. Like there's just so much like JavaScript joy happening in the world. And we're like, how do we get involved in a way that feels authentic? And I'm curious if you've seen companies do things besides just like sponsor the conference that you thought was really clever or great.
Good question. I think one key part is when I give talks, the talk will often not have Cloudflare or Twilio in the title. And it might be mentioned like once in the description. But when I speak, I don't want it to be explicitly obviously a sponsor pitch. Because when I see talks, sometimes I see it, I'm like, that is a sponsor pitch. They should have paid for that. What was the question again? Authenticity?
Other conference talks, ways to get involved. Like, have you seen companies do cool things like Twilio Lounge for, I don't know, like what should we be doing around conferences?
Yeah.
I love seeing, this is one way to build community, is being like, hey, we're going to be in this city, which you do a lot anyways, because they're in all these cities. And we're going to host a breakfast, a lunch, a coffee, happy hour. And like get people together, talk, and like you don't pitch, but like people, that's one way to get like name recognition. A few years ago, pre-pandemic, Twilio almost bought out a movie theater, but we did not quite. We just bought a lot of tickets to Detective Pikachu. And then we like tweeted out, LinkedIn posted everything like, hey, if you're a developer in San Francisco, come watch this movie with us. And a lot of people were like, is this a trick? Like, why would Twilio be doing this? I'm like, there were no demos. We didn't talk to most of the attendees because we met at a movie theater. We were like, hey, you're signed up. Here's your ticket. Bring your kids, bring your like spouses. And it was like about building goodwill. And I think that's playing the long game, where you will not see increased signups. You will not see people learn about your product. But they will remember, like, I took my kid to Detective Pikachu because of Twilio.
Love it. It's a core
awesome.
memory with Twilio.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of other themes. Like, getting kids involved is always fun.
Really? I've never thought about doing that. and I have one.
Yes, I've seen. I'm about to go to that conference in the Wisconsin Dells next week. Is that like a water park in the Kalahari area? I think that's what it's called. And they have like special kids tickets. And I think that's fun. And some of the talks, some of the sessions are kid friendly. Like they might involve Legos or an escape room. And I'm like,
So cool.
it makes me want a kid. Because I'm like, that's so cute. Like I
Okay,
might go to some of those. Like I love escape rooms, but
that's amazing. Okay, one idea I have. What if we said, like, as Jam, like, hey, Jam is putting itself out of business. Here's how. We're going to teach developers' kids how to code and do like events for kids. And it's like we're going to help the next generation of software engineers be really well prepared and not write any bugs. We're putting ourselves out of business.
Oh, that's good.
I love
Dan-
it.
Danny's on fire today.
I've been so looking forward to this chat with you, Lizzie.
I love that. I think like some companies really focus on the competitors, and I think that's just negative. It's like just think about your audience, like developers. To paraphrase, is it JFK? I hope we never lose sight of one. No, that was Walt Disney. I hope we never lose sight of one thing. It all is about developers. His quote is like, "It all started with a mouse." Yeah.
I have a follow-up question to something you said. So we're totally with you that events are just vibe based, and you go to some events and the vibe is amazing, and you go to some events and the vibe is stale, and when you go to an event and the vibe is stale, like you never show up again. It's like that was horrible. I'm never going to go to that like event ever again, and so the risk is very high. And so whenever we do events, they're like highly programmed. We're like handpick speakers who we know are going to give great talks. We like make sure it's going to be as good as we can make it, right? But when you say like, hey, we're going to do happy hour or breakfast or coffee in a city, come meet us. How do you make that a great event? Because there's no agenda that like, how do you deliver that in a good way?
I'm gonna be honest. I feel like it's hard to fail with that. Like people love free food, and if you're not in a city, it's temporary. And I feel like people want to take advantage of that. Of like, this is like a limited time offer. Danny is in New Mexico or something. Like I would go if I was in New Mexico. Like I would love free Blue Bottle, whatever they have there. And I think just like maybe have some like conversation topics in mind. I hosted a meetup a few weeks ago, and I thought the vibes were going to be off. So last minute, I texted my friend Daniel. I was like, Daniel, get over here. And he was like, Lizzie, I'm about to go to the gym. And I was like, can you come after? And like he came after. He gave a talk that he'd given the day before. And I had just wanted like a last minute talk that was fun. Daniel brings like fun vibes. And I think it was like a good conversation starter for people.
Lizzie, what have been your favorite things that you have done in dev community? So this meetup like sounds amazing. The Pikachu sounds amazing. What are the other like top?
I think I got into developer relations because I used to want to be a teacher. And then I met DevRel people at college hackathons. They were the ones teaching me, give me the demo. And I was just so excited to go back and be able to do that. Like kind of return the favor to students, to developers. And I love keeping in touch with developers and seeing them on their journeys. Like progress from job hunting or student to engineer. And it's great to see them progress and grow. I think a cool experience I had recently this year was going to Portland to film an episode of 4 Web Devs, 1 App with Jason Lainstorp. And like it's like a developer reality show. And he just came out with the second episode last week, I think. And I was just at a conference last week and people were like, oh, we saw you on YouTube or we saw you on the show. And I was like, oh my gosh. Like, I know it was fun. And now I get to say, I'm a developer reality show contestant. Former.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome. I want to shift gears for a little bit. Like, when I heard that you were going to be a guest on the pod, I asked some of my friends who are like building like developer focused companies and working on open source projects, and I asked like, hey, like what question should I ask? And the common theme across the question, I'll synthesize it, whatever they were asking was, uh, when you're building something for developers, and this is from the company's perspective, these are just like, imagine for a second, just two co-founders or one person building a product, and they haven't done any of the DevRel stuff before. And when you're competing with so many other tools, even if they're open source or not, doesn't matter. When there's so many things out there, how do you sort of stand out? Like, what can they do? Like, if they have no like community building or DevRel experience, like how can their product or their open source project stand out? And how should they um, debut in the world, in the public?
Oh, good question. I think just have a good product, have a good docs. Don't treat docs as an afterthought. At Twilio, all the docs team, they were developers. And I think that really contributed to why the docs were so highly rated. And let's see.
Developers read docs. That is true. Like I think our docs gets more traffic than like our marketing site. Like people visit them a lot.
Yes, and like I'll be turned off by bad docs. Like if I copy and paste code and it doesn't work, I'm like, well, it should. So that I might like go off and like find another option. And like having a good README, keeping it up to date. Some projects, I am guilty of this. Good READMEs take time. Good docs take time. But if you want people to use them quickly, then they should be good. Having a product that markets itself, like having developers talk about your product for you, like they don't need to work for you. They don't need to be in DevRel, but I think that's like an amazing stamp of approval. That's amazing marketing of like, there's a few products that me and my teammate Craig talk about in talks and workshops. They do not pay us, but I'm like, sometimes I think they should. And that's like, if it's like easy to get started, and like very demoable, I think having a good demo helps. Live coding demo, I'm a big fan of because it shows authenticity. How easy it is to get started from like 0 to 100 in like 5 minutes, ideally, maybe longer. I've seen people launch on Product Hunt, Twitter, Reddit, and I forget who I saw, a developer founder. He posted something about a GitHub project, open source project, that did not take off until someone shared it. Like it took time. So just like stick with it. Like just because it doesn't take off when you publish it or when you post about it doesn't mean it will not take off.
Wow.
So like what I'm hearing from you, Lizzie, here is like your advice is sort of like to sum it up. It's like if you're starting from scratch, your product is new, then your first DevRel step really is just putting in the effort, adding polish, making sure the product that you've built is actually going to be amazing for developers before anything else, before like going out to communities or trying to host a hackathon or whatever. Like the first thing is showing that you care enough to have polish in whatever little you have already, I guess.
Yes, and like being part of those communities. Harrison Chase, the Lane Chain founder, he went to San Francisco AI meetups before he made Lane Chain, but he would talk to developers there, get to know their pain points. Then he built this big project, and now it's like a lot of funding, very big, very buzzy. And I think CEOs and founders are like the best DevRel people. Like it's your baby, it's your product, your project, you know it. And like you're probably going to be doing DevRel without the title.
Super helpful.
I have a specific jam challenge I would like to ask you about. Okay, so what we're facing right now, or like at least I'm facing in my role at Jam, which is very community focused, is that like I feel like we have a strong community in the terms of vibes. When you come to events, there are vibes. People come. When we happen to send like a really good email, there are vibes, there are answers. So like the vibes are happening. but it is dispersed. We don't have a specific community channel. Like there's no Slack or there's no like Reddit where we're talking to people. We're just sort of talking to them on the internet in general and I don't know how to bring the vibes into like a central place so that I can make sure that like everybody who likes our vibe knows what's happening. It's like hard. And you know, we have like 130,000 users and they're like all over the world. I'm having a tough time with distribution is what I'm trying to say.
I've seen some successful Discords and Slacks, but I've also seen some that are not successful.
No.
I think like if we could motivate people to get in there, if they could get access to Jam engineers, maybe like to Danny, like anyone, just like why should they join? For the community, if they need advice, to share what they're building. I love show and tell. If you have any giveaways, prizes, like.
Do you think developers would come to like a 10-person Zoom to learn about a specific topic with a Jam developer? Or is that boring?
I think it depends on the developer and depends on the topic.
Perfect.
But like, I've seen people do that. Yes.
Before we wrap, I'm curious if you have any spicy takes, hot takes on DevRel, dev community to share.
Oof. Hi.
No pressure. If no spicy takes, a different question I have is like, I'm curious, what do you think is one thing that people just get wrong about dev community, or you see companies get wrong about dev community?
Okay, I'll get to that. For the dev hot takes, DevRel is not dead. I've seen a few blog posts that say that, and then I think those titles were particularly clickbaity because then they go on to write about like, oh, it's not totally dead, only this part is dead. And it's like, yes, certain parts are dead because of this current economy or the current state of the world. But overall, like, you need, if you have a developer product, an API, a dev tool, you need someone to talk about it. And who's going to do that? A developer who is able to translate, educate, wants to teach. And it's not easy to find a developer who wants to do one of those, let alone all of those. And dev communities, what do people get wrong about them?
Or like top advice you have for DevRel, like sort of curious if there's just like global knowledge in your brain that you're like, this is what I have to share.
Do the job before you have the title. And I think authenticity first. I go to a lot of talks because like it's my job and that's how I learn what to talk about, what people are talking about, how I see public speaking techniques, slide, design ideas, talk title ideas. And I hate being pitched to. Developers have a huge BS meter where like developers don't want to be marketed to. And I think some DevRel has gotten into marketing to developers because like you need metrics, you need marketing, but I think it's like a fine line in doing so. And sometimes I've seen dev communities kind of like exploited for marketing. And I'm like, you sold my data, you sold my information, or you misrepresented to this event where I did not expect to be marketed to. And devs do not like being misrepresented like that. Hope that helps.
Luckily, there are no marketers on this call.
Not at all. Not at all.
Should we close out with a discussion of swag?
I'm kind of getting tired of shirts. I have too many shirts. I have a lot of water bottles. I love stickers, but I put them on SID water bottles and SID laptops.
SID laptops. You get laptops?
No, just my one laptop. I like hoodies, but those are more expensive. Crew necks. I like swag that you can't tell it's for a company. I have this crew neck that says artificially intelligent, and it's from a certain company that I won't name because now they're kind of a Cloudflare competitor, kind of, in some ways. And it is not obvious. I'm like, what's the point of this swag if you can't tell what company made it? but like I like that. I think you could put the company like in small font on the back, but that's more expensive. But
Yeah.
I do love when like the company name is subtle because I'm more likely to wear it. Or shirts that have like quotes or like puns. I think OpenAI, I may be like misquoting this. OpenAI was giving away shirts that said crazy rich Bayesians.
What?
Like,
Like
yeah.
Bayesian.
Yes.
Uh,
It's like puns. Like, I love that pun.
That's a pretty good one.
Like, maybe have like a logo like right beneath it.
yeah. So if you want people to wear your swag, don't make it like a billboard for your company.
Yes. It's like, if it's a company that I like, yes. Like, I have a lane train crew neck that I wear a lot because, like, I like to think I'm special. There's not many of them. I say that there's not many of them. They probably are. I haven't seen many in the wild. Prev was just acquired by NVIDIA, and their swag, their crew neck, I think is mainly like a Hane 10 logo, but I think is cool. My non-tech friends like don't know what that is, but they're like, yeah, like Hawaii. I also like socks. Like they're useful. I think like something that's useful.
Yeah.
I have an experimental question.
Headbands. I love scrunchies.
Oh yeah, Twilio is great.
Scrunchies, Danny.
Yeah.
We need to go on that. I would love to give scrunchies.
We could say like
I would love a scrunchie.
the 90s are back for your hair, but not for bug reporting.
I love that.
Okay, I have a very experimental question, which is, Lizzie, you see everything, or not, you see what we're doing in Jam and how we're trying to build community and do DevRel, and I'm curious if you have any advice for us or any feedback for us.
You're doing a great job considering you haven't made your first DevRel hire yet. I love seeing you in the community. Like you're supporting developer communities, you're hosting events. And I feel like you're not explicitly marketing to developers at times, where I'm like, you could be even more marketing-y. Like it's very authentic, it's very supportive, I think. Like, sorry, again, siren.
That's all Ivana. Everything you're saying, I'm like, go Ivana. Also, when you said you could be more marketing, I just looked at Ivana's face and it was
Like,
I think like your educational clips on Twitter where like you talk with other developers or people in tech is like very educational, and that's a good way to get the name out. It's educational. I like your pizza fund. I like to help other people, other like meetup groups host their own events.
oh, the pizza.
What could you do better? So that was like very like
how do we
fangirly.
level it up?
Constructive. I'm ready.
Why is there? Pardon me if I'm like wrong, but is there no jam yet?
You're right.
Jam.
You're right. We did it wrong.
Like jam to eat, like jam branded jam.
You're right.
Firebase used to have hot sauce, and I was like, yeah, I want hot sauce. Or at Twilio, at Twilio, we used to host demo jams, or where the DevRel team would get together and just give demos and give feedback on each other's demos. And I think you have an opportunity to host different kinds of jams, like maybe like a basketball jam, pickleball jam, like get people together for fun.
When Lizzie said, do you have your own jam? It made me think we should give away gummy worms. And it should say, jam eats your bugs.
Oh, Titty, your ideas today. Did you go to like a creativity, like amazing thing?
No, maybe we should have like Lizzie as a recurring guest.
Recurring.
Yeah.
I would love. Oh my gosh! If you wanted like joint podcast, joint Twitch show, like let's go. Also, like Venus. Sorry, to piggyback off of that, Venus flytraps. They sell them at I
Oh my
think
God.
IKEA or
Okay, wait. I'm
to
like buying
eat
like 10. Let's give them away.
what else?
Oh
Like
my God,
eat
that's
bugs.
so funny. Jam eats your, we eat your bugs is just such, oh my God. Wait, our stickers should be Venus flytraps.
Yes. Yes.
I'm like laughing, but I don't know what a Venus flytrap is.
Oh, they're these
That
plants
is
that eat
what
bugs.
your pants?
They're plants.
Oh, they're plants. Ah.
Yes.
Oh, like the Mario ones?
Oh.
Kind
I guess they kind of look like those, but like Jane is like looking for a picture.
Yeah, I'll
Right.
get you one. Oh,
I've been
Venus
playing Super
flytrap
Mario
eats in
Sunday.
slow motion. I got you. It'll be in the show notes.
Amazing.
Oh.
This has been awesome.
Wait, last thing
Yes.
for Jam. If you could like, I've seen some of your live demos, and I think like just like amplify live demos. Twilio had their 5-minute demo where developer evangelists would live code and make an app live on stage from like start to finish. And like we said 5 minutes, maybe like 7 minutes. And it would make the app, people would text in, and then the app would call them. So I'm trying to think of like live coding, reproducible, and like audience participation, and like also customizable. And I think yours that I saw already kind of did that to an extent.
You're saying like during the demo, like maybe I don't know, we make like an amazing, super buggy site, and like we tell people to get jam while we're explaining or something like that, and then like whoever determines what the cause of the problem is fastest wins, or not. Like what do you mean?
I think like turning that into a demo of jam. But I do like that idea of like I love contests and giveaways, and then you could give away a Venus flytrap. I just like plants, so yeah.
I just wrote down what you said and like circled it and put a bunch of stars next to it, which is like amplify live demos. Like whatever it is that we're doing live demo, like how do we do live demos at scale?
Yes. Sorry, last thing. At a conference
Please.
2 or 3 weeks ago, so many of the demos were not live, and I was like, what are you trying to hide? Yeah. And I do think you should always have like a video as backup, but ideally do it live.
Okay, I think that what you just said encapsulates developer marketing. So, like, sometimes we'll put together a graphic and we'll be like, wait, it looks like marketing. And it like, let's not feed developers marketing. Let's just put like a screenshot of the product. And we've never put into words why that is. Ivana says, like, no one wants to be sold to, which is right. But I think, what are you trying to hide by having this overly polished, overly produced thing? Like, why can't you show me the real thing? I think what you said is exactly right.
Yes, and that's why I think I love live coding. Like people love when you mess up. It's authentic. It's real because everyone messes up. And then if sometimes I try to have like I mess up on purpose, and then I want someone to like find it for me. Like I love the audience participation. Are they paying attention? And I think you can do a lot with that. I think Jam personally can do a lot with that.
You know, it's so true. Like, for example, like when you're looking for a tool, and if you're looking at like reviews, and all you see are 5-star excellent reviews, you trust it less. Like, I want to see 4.8. I want to see a couple of issues, and then like really excellent people. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good metaphor. Is the metaphor? Yeah.
This was so awesome. Thank you so much for doing this.
Danny, thank you. Thank you, Ivana.